I left one of my first jobs very impulsively without any remorse. But I do not recommend anyone try this at home. It's not the best thing to do. My first job was at Burger King. It lasted 3 days. The supervisor disrespected me. I scooped up some fries and I got a small little bag and I was gradually placing them in there. And the person said, "Avanza, Sergio, avanza." At the moment, I just bagged everything, handed it to the person. But I knew what I was gonna do the next day. I was gonna come with a trash bag with all of my uniforms. And I walked in, I passed my buddy, and he looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Excuse me, manager, can I come in for a second?" "Yeah, of course. How can I help you?" And I just placed a bag of uniforms on his desk. And I said, "I quit." He's like, "What?" "I quit." And then I just walked away.
You're flushing a golden opportunity down the toilet.
Then I walked home for like about 5 miles, thinking, what am I gonna do now? What I do not recommend is you ever leave a job without securing another. But fortunately for me, during these days, I didn't have any rent or obligations, so I could afford to make this drastic and impulsive move. But never again in life did I ever do this, because it's just not a smart decision. So my second job, I'm like, you know what? I gotta pick something that I actually like. So one day, I was with my grandma and my mom, and we just so happened to swing by a retail spot. It's a place where you dress for less. So when I walked in, well, we noticed they were hiring. My grandma nudged me and said, "Hey, why don't you apply here?" "Why not?" I didn't have a car at the time, so I took the bus. The hiring manager says there's a psychological test that you have to pass in order to get this $5.25 an hour job, whatever it takes. So then I fill out the psychological test and I get the job. I'm like, all right, I'm motivated. I'm not motivated by the money, I'm motivated by the opportunity. So based on my good attitude, the store manager put me to do customer service. What I would see there is the constant shopaholics, the ones that go every day to return something. There was this little sweet old lady that would always give me chocolates. Thank you so much for the chocolate bar. What would you like to do? Well, she would like to return 16 articles of clothing. There are many people in an establishment that just do not perform at the same high level. Some people don't care. They might see it as I'm just passing through, but there's other people that are go-getters. They're hungry. They're trying to grow. Those people ultimately receive promotions, and then maybe their colleagues, at that point, they're like, "Whoa, why not me? Well, why not you? Because you're not working as hard. You're not as dedicated." That's why everything across the board cannot be the same. You have to earn what you're able to obtain. If I'm making the $5.25, and all of a sudden I see that there's a possibility that the government can raise my wages immediately with $15 or $20, at that moment, I would see that as a good thing. Of course, that would benefit somebody like me at that moment, but the impact would be far greater considering that 20 years later, I became a business owner and I understand how this works. Everything cannot be the same across the board. For the government to come in and say, this is what you have to pay, knowing that it's gonna do a lot of harm, the situation is this. Not every single business will operate in the same manner. And not everybody that's going into a company is going to have the same drive and dedication. The government should stay out of the way. You're raising wages across the board for some people that do not deserve raises. That's just going to obligate the business owner to make some hard decisions.
While they want to do right by employees, this new law has hit operations hard.
We're no longer hiring. We're not backfilling positions. We're not growing in the state anymore. We're not expanding more locations. And I'm ultimately thinking about selling or closing my business.
The owner might not be able to sustain operations. What works best is you work within the law, but if government is overstepping to the point that it's unsustainable, it doesn't become reasonable anymore. An obligation of $20 minimum wage for everyone is definitely going to impact the business owner. If you currently work as a cashier and you're going to benefit from that, and you see yourself working there for 5 to 10 years or forever, that's fine. But just understand that only because the government obligates something to happen, there really is no obligation from the business owner to keep the business running.
Co-workers supporting their families, the pay boost will make a big impact.
Because they're single parents and stuff like that. A lot of them are single mothers and, they don't have any other income. This is their only job.
Restaurants from Jack in the Box to Starbucks to McDonald's and Chipotle have warned of price hikes, execs suggesting they'll raise prices 2.5% to 3.5% to offset the higher wages.
My 6 stores, we're going to be way into the red.
I'm extremely happy about it. I used to be a fast food worker. The $20, it's not even a living wage, so it'll definitely help, but it still doesn't fix the issue.
I was like, okay, April Fools, be for real. Not April Fools. I realized that she was not joking. I drove straight over here and got my last check.
But the business owner indicated that on Friday, before the Monday that the $20 minimum wage was going into effect, they already realized that they weren't going to be able to sustain the business operations. So Monday comes, and it appears to be a shock to everyone. So somebody just telling you, yeah, you know what? We're just going to raise everything for everybody. And then it just so happens you're in that pool of people that are going to benefit from that wage increase. Instead of receiving a greeting at the door by the business owner, the greeting was their last paycheck. The game was over at that point when you close the doors. This is about understanding if these laws are even good for the economy or not. Let's look at the minimum wage tracker. The federal minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. The states that have no minimum wage law are Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Wyoming. So that means these states, they go by the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25. Would you say that's good or bad? I mean, I would say it's bad if I realize that I'm looking at the job market in a state like Tennessee, and then I realize that all the jobs are posted at $7.25 because that's the federal minimum wage. That all of the businesses are just posting the bare minimum requirement. But is that true? No, not what I've seen. For example, I just looked at a few restaurants for cashier positions, and the wages were posted between $12.50 and $22.50. I also took a look at the other 6 states, and I could not find any jobs posted for $7.25. The range was between $10 and $25. At this point, the government is the one in control because they just rose the bar on what the minimum pay will be, and that way, they're going to guarantee more income tax revenue forever.
From the people that I spoke to, my employees, we would have rather stayed at the wage that we did have before, just because now we don't have a job. And those who are still working in the areas around us that went up to $20 an hour, they got their hours severely cut, and it's a lot less people working on shifts, so their jobs got a lot more difficult. This is not the first business that's closing. There's already a few local businesses for me that are closing, so I feel like this is just only the beginning.
My hope is that people motivate themselves to build a strong work ethic that will allow them to progress in life. Remember that success is not defined by the money you make, but by the impact you leave. With that said, of course we all need to make enough to survive and feed our families, but sometimes your short-term sacrifices will lead you to long-term gains. I refuse to support the narrative that handing out fish to people beats teaching them to fish on their own. When you see communist countries that hand out clap boxes to their citizens while their leaders eat gourmet, it insults people like me that grew up poor. The government has the power to print money when needed, causing hyperinflation, and has a spending problem. If citizens have the same uncontrollable spending problem, we end up bankrupt, so it's not a comparable journey. I would like to know what you think. Comment down below and let's talk. All point of views are welcome and encouraged. Take care.